I hadn't laid eyes on my brother in over 4 years. Not since the evening he strolled into my apartment, his suit still crisp from his final fitting, and told me he was marrying Jenna, the woman I'd been planning to exchange vows with in just 3 weeks. He dropped it so casually, like he was mentioning a change in the weather. Not a hint of remorse, just a careless shrug. My parents called the whole thing an unfortunate twist of fate and suggested I be the mature one. I threw some clothes in a bag and simply vanished. And now here I was, Marcus Webb, back at the family table. Same worn-in chairs, same antique light fixture, same practiced laughter from my brother Derek as he nursed his drink like the world owed him something special. He hadn't changed. Still the center of attention at every meal, still casting looks like sharp little objects, waiting to see if I'd flinch. "You look well-rested," he commented across the table, his voice carrying. "Guess some people just thrive on isolation, huh?" The quiet chuckles that followed weren't boisterous, but they stung all the same. My father gave a soft cough. My mother kept her eyes glued to her dish, and I just offered a calm smile, because I wasn't on my own anymore. The front door opened with a soft click behind us. I didn't glance back, but when the man who entered was acknowledged with a hushed, respectful tone, someone murmured, "Colonel Vance." Derek's grip on his glass faltered just a little, and I understood this meal wasn't going to unfold the way he had anticipated. If you've ever felt abandoned, wounded by those closest to you, and still been expected to just grin and bear it, share your story in the comments. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but because perhaps somewhere out there, you've known this same ache. Now, let's rewind to where the real story started. I should have recognized the patterns. In hindsight, the clues were everywhere. Ryan had begun showing up late to our wedding preparations, skipping out on cake tastings, putting off decisions with a vague later, and Derek was a constant presence. My younger brother, 2 years my junior, effortlessly charming in a glossy magazine sort of way, and perpetually adored. He sailed through existence while I worked to build my own from scratch. Still, it never crossed my mind he'd take the one person who had vowed to stand by my side indefinitely. It all came to a head on a random Tuesday. I'd just returned from a demanding presentation for the community program I'd been helping to reorganize. I recall feeling tired but satisfied. Ryan was waiting at my place. I assumed he was there to finalize the song list. Instead, he confessed he couldn't go through with the marriage. He spoke of being uncertain, of not being truthful with himself. And then he mentioned my brother's name. All the air seemed to vanish. I don't recall much else. Just disjointed images, him appearing regretful. Me gripping the kitchen counter, like it was the sole thing keeping me upright. Then Derek's message came through 10 minutes later. Not even a call, just a text. "This wasn't planned, but we've found something real. I hope someday you can accept it." Accept it? No, I understood it perfectly well. My parents reached out the following day, not to see how I was coping, but to ask me politely to avoid any conflict. "Derek has always needed your encouragement," Mom said. "And Ryan, well, feelings shift, my dear." I didn't shed a tear. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked away. I terminated my lease. Took a leave of absence from work. Got rid of my phone number. For the first time ever, I felt no need to justify my actions, because there was nobody left who truly mattered enough to hear it. The headlines from their wedding surfaced 6 weeks afterwards. My brother wore my chosen suit, the one I had selected with our grandfather. The venue remained the same, even the caterer. He didn't alter a single detail. He simply inserted himself into the future I had designed and beamed for the cameras as if he'd rightfully earned it. I stumbled upon the pictures online, nestled between society columns and birth announcements. They looked so happy. In one photo, my mother's hand rested proudly on Derek's arm. In another, my father was shaking Ryan's hand. I stared at the screen in a small coffee shop in Vermont, then shut the laptop and cleared the browsing history, as if erasing evidence of something embarrassing. But the embarrassment was never mine to carry. I found a small apartment near a lake, survived on what I'd saved, took up hiking, and embraced long periods of quiet. For months, I drifted through time feeling fragile, noticeable, and perpetually on the verge of breaking down. But underneath the stillness, something had begun to shift. Not fury, not a desire for payback, just room to breathe. Room to consider who I was when I wasn't striving to be the dependable son, the devoted partner, the reliable one keeping the family functioning. The answer didn't arrive suddenly, but it started to form on a gloomy Thursday in a modest church basement on the edge of town. I'd wandered in during a community gathering, not seeking anything specific, when I heard a man facilitating a discussion on support systems for homeless veterans. He spoke gently, but every word carried weight. I remained for the entire session. Then I signed up to lend a hand. That's where I met Sarah. She wasn't flashy, no fancy attire, no title emblazoned on a badge, just a simple sweater, warm eyes, and hands that were always busy helping. She was arranging chairs for the next presentation and offered me a smile that felt genuine. Later, I would discover she had previously led a humanitarian aid unit overseas. Currently, she coordinated outreach for struggling families. I didn't know back then that she would become the one individual who would never expect me to make myself smaller. But I sensed this much. The existence Derek had taken wasn't the only one worth having. I didn't disappear overnight. It was a gradual fading, the kind you don't notice until you look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. After the wedding, the treachery, the ensuing quiet, I turned into something I'd never been before, irrelevant, easily replaced. At first, I thought maybe they just required time, that eventually someone, maybe Dad, would phone, invite me back, say they were sorry for how it all went down. But the calls never came. Instead, Derek shared pictures. Cozy brunches with Ryan, shopping sprees with Mom, my father teaching Ryan how to fix things around the house, as if he was molding the ideal substitute son. The captions always read something like "Family First" or "Blessed with New Beginnings." He hadn't just taken my partner. He'd inherited my parents' affection and flaunted it like a prize. The final breaking point arrived on what was supposed to be my wedding day. A package was left at my door. No message, no sender information. Contained inside was a collection of envelopes, wedding invitations with my name scratched out and Derek's written over it in ornate script. On top, a single note. It's better you find peace somewhere distant than cause trouble over what's already finished. I never learned who sent it, but it didn't matter. That night, I booked a flight to Arizona. I knew someone there from my previous charity work, a therapist who ran retreats for individuals dealing with loss. She mentioned I could use her spare room until I got sorted. I thought I'd be gone maybe a few weeks. I remained for nearly 2 years. The desert landscape has a unique ability to strip things down. Noise, memories, pride. There were mornings I'd wake up and not recognize the face looking back. Unshaven, hair longer, features leaner, calmer. Yet there was something truthful in those eyes. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was putting on an act. Sarah and I met again at a statewide conference on community health. She was there presenting on outreach programs for displaced individuals. I was assisting at the sign-in table, still uncertain of my own place in the world. We spoke over terrible coffee in a crowded hallway. She recalled my name. I remembered the way she paid attention when others talked, as if their stories truly mattered. From that point, things developed gradually, almost frustratingly so. Sarah didn't pry into my history. She didn't attempt to mend me. She simply paid attention. When I mentioned I used to handle logistics for global aid projects, she didn't act surprised. She just remarked, "Seems like you're still constructing things, just using a different set of tools now." We began spending our free time sketching concepts on any available paper, dreaming of a program designed to assist people who had been pushed aside, abandoned, or forgotten by the very structures meant to support them. I didn't realize we were developing deeper feelings until one day she pointed to a sentence I'd written in a draft proposal. "This section," she noted, "where it talks about them understanding they aren't ruined, just hidden. That's the core of it." I looked up, and she was already watching me. When Sarah proposed, it wasn't elaborate. No grand gestures, no hidden witnesses. Just the two of us on a hillside, watching the sunset. She presented me with a simple band on a leather cord. "I'm not here to rescue you," she said. "I just want to stand with you while you find your own way." I accepted, with emotion thick in my voice. We didn't broadcast it, not out of shame, but because there was practically no one left to tell. My parents hadn't contacted me in over 3 years. Derek sent a holiday card once, a picture of him and Ryan with a new pet. Sarah's family embraced me with genuine warmth. Her mother mentioned she hadn't seen her daughter so content since before her overseas assignments. Her nephews called me Uncle Mark after just a couple of visits. It wasn't a grand affair. It was simply better. Together, we founded New Ground, a nonprofit dedicated to helping individuals reconstruct their lives after major upheaval. We developed it from nothing, securing grants, obtaining state approval, forming local partnerships. Within a couple of years, we were operating multiple programs across several regions. Sarah managed the external relations. I focused on the internal planning and structure. And still, I remained silent with my family until the evening the invitation came. A cream-colored envelope bearing my mother's distinctive handwriting contained within an official request. You are invited to celebrate Arthur Webb's 75th birthday. Immediate family only. I nearly discarded it, but then I noticed the names listed inside. Derek, Ryan, Mom, Dad. No mention of a guest for me. Just a single underlined phrase next to my name. Hope you can make it, Marcus. That's when I understood they had no idea I was married. And they certainly had no clue who might accompany me. Sarah was hesitant to attend initially. When I showed her the invitation, she simply looked at me and asked, "Is this something you want to do?" I paused before answering, because part of me wasn't sure. A part wanted to disregard it, to let the distance remain. But another part, something more profound, more steady, wanted to enter that space and remain steady. Not seeking resolution. Not trying to demonstrate anything. I just wanted to discover if I could occupy that space without collapsing. I don't require you to join me, I admitted. But I would value your presence. She nodded once. Then I'll be there. That was Sarah. No excess, no spectacle, just steady faithfulness. The kind you don't value until you understand nobody ever taught you to anticipate it. She offered to wear casual clothes. I asked her not to conceal her identity. She smiled and responded, "I'll keep it understated." Understated, it turned out, meant her formal gray blazer, without awards, but still displaying the patch of her former organization. She wore it with natural ease. Her bearing was relaxed, but undeniably confident without being forceful. On the evening of the dinner, I selected a simple dark shirt. No accessories aside from the simple watch my grandfather had presented to me years ago, one of the few possessions Derek hadn't managed to duplicate. Sarah drove us to the private dining club without speaking. When we arrived, the parking attendant opened my door, then hesitated, his gaze shifting to Sarah as she stepped out. "Evening, ma'am," he said. "Are you still serving?" Sarah responded with a short nod. "Director Vance." The young man blinked, then offered a respectful, "Thank you for your work." Sarah just smiled. "Appreciate that." Inside, the space was precisely as I recalled. Gleaming wood surfaces, crisp white linens, my mother's obsession with ornamental centerpieces. Derek's voice carried over the gentle background music. It hadn't altered, light, simple, the tone of someone who believed everything would always work in their favor. We paused just outside the main area. Sarah placed a hand gently on my shoulder. "Whenever you're ready," she murmured. I stepped forward alone initially. My father noticed me first. He rose a bit too quickly, his glass tilting precariously. "Marcus," he uttered, as if I were an apparition he wasn't certain he wished to see. Then came Derek's voice. "Well, look what the wind blew in." He was wearing bright colors as usual, always needing to be noticed. He grinned like someone who believed they had triumphed and was prepared to relish it repeatedly. "You seem well," he stated, head angled. "I guess being alone works for some folks." It was almost exactly what he would say again later that evening, just more pronounced, more assured. I acknowledged him politely and found my seat, leaving the spot next to me vacant. 10 minutes passed. The typical conversation resumed. My father offered a toast. Derek chuckled at something Ryan mentioned. Nobody inquired about my life during the intervening years. Then the entrance opened. A gentle sound. A noticeable stillness. I didn't turn, but they all did. And I sensed the atmosphere change before I caught the words. "Director Vance, ma'am." One of the other guests, a former service member, judging by his demeanor, rose immediately, offering a small, respectful nod. Sarah acknowledged him with a brief nod, shook his hand firmly, then moved toward our table with the kind of quiet confidence that needed no announcement. I stood as she neared. She didn't glance at anyone else, just at me. She took my hand, held it gently for a moment, and faced the table. "This is my husband," she stated. "Marcus Vance. He helped me find my way again." A hush fell over the group. Not Derek, whose fork had slipped from his fingers. Not Ryan, whose expression had shifted like someone confronting an unexpected reality. Not my parents, who remained motionless as if they'd just understood they had misjudged something fundamental and permanent. Sarah smiled softly, the type of smile that conveyed, "You no longer have the power to diminish her." And I, for the first time in what felt like forever, allowed them to witness what genuine resilience appeared as. Calm. Established. Unwavering. The meal proceeded, but the atmosphere had permanently altered. Nobody seemed to know what to express after Sarah presented me as her spouse. The same individuals who once considered me the overlooked sibling abruptly couldn't meet my eyes. Even Derek appeared uncertain how to regain dominance of the gathering. He attempted twice. Once with a remark about the rigidity of aid workers, and again with a comment regarding how certain individuals recover more rapidly than others, but neither attempt succeeded. Sarah simply remained beside me, composed and unreadable, sipping water as if this were a typical evening. But Derek wasn't one to remain quiet indefinitely. When dessert came, a layered cake he had probably insisted be ordered from the same bakery that supplied his wedding reception, he angled himself across the table, his attention fixed on me. "So," he began, his tone deceptively pleasant, "what's it like being the partner of a big-shot director? Do you just organize files and give motivational talks these days?" I smiled politely. "Actually, I assist in operating a foundation focused on rebuilding lives after trauma. We're currently developing nationwide proposals for affordable housing programs." His expression tightened slightly. "Sounds worthwhile." I offered no response. That quiet must have irritated him, because his tone gained an edge. "I suppose not everyone is suited for being in the spotlight. You always seemed more comfortable working behind the scenes. Remember when Mom had to push you to even attend your own engagement party?" Ryan gave a soft, uncomfortable clearing of throat, but remained silent. My mother's fingers tightened on her glass. Derek pressed on. "It's just somewhat ironic, isn't it? Some individuals disappear for extended periods and then reappear anticipating recognition." Sarah started to rise, but I reached over and touched her arm. "I'm all right," I said softly. Then I addressed my brother. "I didn't vanish. I simply stopped attending places where I wasn't valued." That struck deeper than I anticipated. Even my father glanced down. Derek attempted to laugh it away. "Well," he said, flipping his hair back, "you were always prone to overreaction." I leaned forward a fraction. "And you were always dependent on an audience. But not everyone applauds disruption, Derek." The table grew completely quiet. Sarah positioned her hand on my back, not as a restraint, but as a supportive gesture, a reminder that I had nothing left to verify. Then came the moment I hadn't foreseen. The woman seated across the room, a former state senator I'd observed earlier, rose and commented, "Mr. Vance, I believe we crossed paths at the legislative briefing last spring. You delivered that presentation on community reintegration models." I nodded, surprised. "Yes, that was me." She turned to my father. "You should take pride in that. The work he's doing for displaced populations is genuinely remarkable." My nephew still references his talk. Silence spread through the room like water across a surface. Sarah's voice was soft, but conclusive. "He didn't come here seeking validation. But if it's unsettling that he no longer fits the role of the quiet, forgotten one, that's not his concern." My mother parted her lips to respond, but nothing emerged. Derek's expression shifted. For the first time, he didn't appear dominant. He appeared vulnerable. Because this wasn't a staged event anymore. This was reality, and every person at that table could sense it. We didn't remain for coffee. Sarah stood first. I followed. No dramatic exit, just the soft noise of a chair moving and the rustle of a jacket. Nobody attempted to stop us. Nobody dared to. As we approached the entrance, I paused for one brief look back, not out of longing, but to confirm to myself that I had ultimately moved beyond that previous version of me. The person who once pleaded for acceptance was absent. Back at our temporary lodging, Sarah made tea while I stood near the window, fingers lightly touching the watch my grandfather had given me. The city lights sparkled in the far distance. For such a long time, I believed recovery meant obtaining resolution, making them understand, making them acknowledge their errors. But now I understand I don't require their validation. I possess calm. I possess affection. I possess an identity I selected, not one forced upon me through quiet acceptance. And I possess the type of resilience that doesn't require a platform to be genuine. Derek can retain the suit, the house, the narrative he constructed for outsiders. Because I hold something more significant. I constructed an existence that cannot be taken. I discovered a connection that required no show. And I ultimately stopped attempting to earn a spot at tables that were never designed to accommodate me. I didn't return to retrieve anything. I returned to secure the exit. And now I understand it will remain closed.